The old chain-link fence rattled in the cold wind as Maya pressed her thin body against the concrete wall of the animal shelter. Her golden fur had lost its shine months ago, and her brown eyes held the distant look of a dog who had given up hope. She had been at the Riverside Animal Rescue for 8 months now, watching countless other dogs find their forever homes while she remained behind. Maya's story began on a rainy night, when animal control officers found her wandering the streets, severely malnourished and afraid of human contact. The veterinarians estimated she was about 3 years old, but her experiences had aged her beyond her years. She flinched at sudden movements and cowered when strangers approached her kennel. The shelter staff worked tirelessly to help her trust again, but progress was slow. Sarah Chen had been volunteering at the shelter for 2 years, spending her weekends walking dogs and helping with basic care. She first noticed Maya on a particularly busy Saturday morning, when the shelter was hosting an adoption event. While other dogs barked excitedly at potential families, Maya sat quietly in the corner of her kennel, watching the world go by with those soulful eyes. Something about Maya's quiet dignity touched Sarah's heart. She began spending extra time with the golden retriever mix, sitting outside her kennel and reading aloud from books. Maya would listen intently, her ears perked forward as if she understood every word. Slowly, over several weeks, Maya began to approach the kennel door when Sarah arrived. The breakthrough came on a cold October afternoon, when Maya finally accepted a treat from Sarah's hand. Her tail gave the smallest wag, and Sarah felt tears of joy spring to her eyes. From that moment, she knew Maya was meant to be part of her family. The adoption process took several weeks as the shelter wanted to ensure Maya would go to the perfect home. The day finally arrived when Sarah could take Maya home. The dog walked hesitantly to Sarah's car, unsure of what was happening. During the drive to her new neighborhood, Maya pressed herself against the car door, trembling slightly. Sarah spoke softly to her, explaining that she was going somewhere safe, somewhere she would be loved. Sarah's small house sat on a quiet street lined with oak trees. She had spent weeks preparing for Maya's arrival, buying soft dog beds, nutritious food, and gentle toys. The backyard was securely fenced, providing a safe space for Maya to explore when she was ready. As they pulled into the driveway, Maya's ears perked up at the sight of the cozy home that would become her sanctuary. The first few days were an adjustment for both of them. Maya explored her new surroundings cautiously, sniffing every corner and testing every surface. She seemed amazed by the soft carpet under her paws and the warm bed Sarah had placed by the fireplace. For the first time in months, Maya slept through the entire night without startling awake. Sarah worked from home as a freelance graphic designer, which meant she could spend most of her time helping Maya adjust to her new life. She established routines that helped Maya feel secure. Morning walks around the quiet neighborhood, afternoon sessions in the backyard, and evening cuddle time on the couch. Maya began to relax, her true personality slowly emerging. By November, Maya had gained healthy weight and her coat had started to regain its natural luster. She followed Sarah everywhere around the house as if afraid her new happiness might disappear. Sarah noticed that Maya was especially curious about the large window in the living room that faced the backyard. She would sit there for hours, watching birds and squirrels, her tail wagging gently. The weather forecasters had been talking about an early winter storm heading their way. Sarah had lived in the region her entire life and knew that the first snowfall usually came in late November or early December. As she watched Maya gazing out the window one evening, she wondered how her rescued companion would react to snow, having spent most of her known life in shelters and on the streets. The morning of December 3rd arrived with an unusual stillness in the air. Sarah woke earlier than usual, sensing something different about the day. When she pulled back her bedroom curtains, her breath caught in her throat. During the night, the world had transformed into a winter wonderland. Snow covered everything in sight, the trees, the fence, the garden furniture, creating a pristine white blanket that sparkled in the early morning light. Maya was still sleeping peacefully on her bed by the fireplace, completely unaware of the magical transformation outside. Sarah smiled as she watched her dog's gentle breathing, remembering how Maya used to startle at every sound. Now she slept deeply, secure in the knowledge that she was safe and loved. Sarah quietly made her morning coffee and stood at the kitchen window, marveling at how the snow had changed the familiar landscape of their backyard. The old oak tree that Maya loved to sit under now wore a coat of white, its branches heavy with snow. The bird feeder that usually attracted cardinals and blue jays was now a small snow sculpture. As the aroma of coffee filled the house, Maya began to stir. She stretched luxuriously, then padded over to Sarah with the morning routine they had established. But as they approached the living room window for their usual morning look outside, Maya stopped dead in her tracks. Her head tilted to one side, then the other, trying to process what she was seeing. The backyard she knew so well had vanished overnight. In its place was something completely foreign yet beautiful. Maya's nose pressed against the cool glass as she tried to understand this white wonderland. Her tail began to move slowly, not quite a wag, but showing her curiosity was stronger than her confusion. Sarah knelt beside Maya, gently stroking her fur. She explained in soft tones what snow was, how it fell from the sky during cold weather, and how it would eventually melt away. Maya listened intently as she always did when Sarah spoke to her, but her eyes never left the window. Something about this white substance called to her in a way she couldn't understand. After breakfast, Sarah began preparing for their morning walk. She bundled herself in her winter coat, boots, and gloves while Maya watched with growing excitement. Maya had learned that these preparations meant adventure, and she could barely contain herself as Sarah reached for the leash. But today felt different somehow, more electric with possibility. When Sarah opened the front door, a gust of cold air rushed in, carrying with it the unique scent of fresh snow. Maya's nostrils flared as she encountered this new smell, clean, crisp, and unlike anything she had experienced before. She hesitated at the threshold, one paw raised, unsure whether to step into this transformed world. The front yard looked like something from a fairy tale. The mailbox wore a white cap, and the pathway Sarah usually swept clean was now covered in several inches of pristine snow. Maya could see other neighbors beginning to emerge from their homes, some shoveling their driveways while children squealed with delight in the distance. Sarah stepped onto the porch first, her boots crunching softly in the snow. She turned back to Maya with an encouraging smile, extending her hand. Maya trusted Sarah completely now. But this white ground covering challenged everything she thought she knew about the world. After a moment's hesitation, she placed one tentative paw onto the snow. The sensation was unlike anything Maya had ever felt. The snow was cold against her paw pad, but not unpleasantly so. It compressed under her weight, creating a small paw print that fascinated her. She lifted her paw and examined it, then looked back at the impression she had made. Her second step was more confident, and by the third step, her tail had begun to wag with genuine enthusiasm. As they made their way down the front steps, Maya discovered that snow behaved differently than any surface she knew. Sometimes it was firm enough to support her weight. Other times her paws would sink deeper, creating interesting textures and sensations. She paused frequently to investigate these differences, her scientific mind working to understand this new element. The neighborhood children were already building snowmen and having snowball fights. Their laughter echoed through the crisp air, adding to the magical atmosphere of the morning. Maya watched them with intense curiosity, noting how they seemed to play with the snow rather than simply walk through it. The concept of playing with the ground itself was revolutionary to a dog who had learned to be cautious about her environment. As they ventured further into the snowy neighborhood, Maya's confidence began to build with each step. The initial uncertainty gave way to growing fascination as she discovered that snow created entirely new possibilities for exploration. Every familiar landmark had been transformed into something mysterious and wonderful. The fire hydrant at the corner of their street, usually a simple red post, now resembled a whimsical snow creature with a pointed white hat. Maya approached it cautiously, sniffing the familiar scent beneath the snow coating. When she realized it was still the same hydrant she knew, her tail wagged with what seemed like amusement at this playful disguise. Sarah watched with growing delight as Maya began to interact more boldly with the snow. The transformation in her dog was remarkable. The cautious, fearful animal who had once cowered at new experiences was now investigating this winter wonderland with the curiosity of a puppy. It was as if the snow had awakened something joyful and playful that had been buried deep inside Maya's heart. They continued their walk through the neighborhood, and Maya made an interesting discovery. Her paws were creating a trail of prints behind them, a visible record of their journey through the snow. She turned around several times to examine these prints, seemingly amazed that she was leaving such clear evidence of her passage. Sarah realized this might be the first time Maya had ever seen her own footprints so clearly defined. As they walked past the neighborhood park, Maya noticed something that made her freeze with excitement. Other dogs were playing in the snow, running and jumping with abandon. A golden retriever similar to Maya was racing through the white powder, sending sprays of snow flying with each bound. A small terrier was attempting to catch snowflakes as they fell, spinning in circles with pure joy. Maya watched these dogs with intense concentration. Their behavior was so different from the careful, controlled interactions she had known at the shelter or during her time on the streets. These dogs were expressing pure happiness, and Maya could feel something stirring inside her chest, a feeling she had almost forgotten existed. Sarah noticed Maya's focused attention on the playing dogs and decided to lead them into the park. The snow was deeper here, reaching almost to Maya's belly in some spots. At first, this depth concerned Maya, but as she watched the other dogs navigate the deeper snow with ease, she began to experiment with different ways of moving through it. She tried the careful step-by-step approach she had been using, but found it exhausting in the deeper snow. Then she observed how the golden retriever was bounding through the snow, lifting all four paws high with each leap. Maya attempted this technique tentatively at first, then with growing confidence as she realized it was not only more efficient but actually fun. Her first real bound through the deep snow was a revelation. The sensation of launching herself through the air and landing in the soft, forgiving snow was unlike anything she had ever experienced. The snow cushioned her landing and sprayed up around her, creating a small explosion of white powder that caught the morning sunlight like tiny diamonds. Maya stopped and looked around, as if suddenly aware that she had just done something remarkable. Her mouth was open in what could only be described as a smile, her tongue lolling out happily. The combination of the cold air, the physical exertion, and the pure joy of discovery had awakened something primal and wonderful in her spirit. Sarah felt tears of happiness welling up in her eyes as she watched Maya's transformation. This was the dog Maya was always meant to be, joyful, playful, and free. The months of patience and gentle care were paying off in this magical moment of pure canine bliss. A young boy nearby had been building a snowman with his father and noticed Maya's enthusiastic play. He called out to Sarah, asking if Maya would like to help them with their snowman. Sarah looked at Maya, who was now panting happily and looking around for her next snowy adventure, and decided this might be the perfect opportunity for Maya to interact with new people in this magical setting. As they approached the father and son, Maya showed none of her usual nervousness around strangers. The snow seemed to have created a different world where her old fears didn't exist. The boy gently offered Maya a stick to carry, which she accepted eagerly, her tail wagging as she realized she was being included in their snow activities. The father commented on how beautiful Maya was and how much she seemed to be enjoying her first snow. Sarah felt a surge of pride as she watched Maya interact confidently with these kind strangers, using the stick to help pack snow around the base of their snowman. The transformation from the frightened shelter dog to this confident, joyful companion was nothing short of miraculous. After their delightful encounter with the snowman builders, Maya's enthusiasm for the snowy world continued to grow. As they made their way back toward home, she began experimenting with different ways to interact with the snow. She discovered that she could push her nose deep into the white powder and come up with a snowy beard that made Sarah laugh out loud. The sound of Sarah's laughter seemed to encourage Maya even more. She began deliberately collecting snow on her nose and face, then shaking it off in a spray of white crystals that caught the sunlight. Each time Sarah laughed or praised her, Maya's tail wagged faster, and she became more creative in her snow play. They paused at their neighbor Mrs. Patterson's house, where the elderly woman was watching from her window with obvious delight. Mrs. Patterson had lived on the street for 40 years and had seen many dogs enjoy their first snow, but there was something special about Maya's reaction that drew her outside despite the cold. Mrs. Patterson approached slowly, understanding that some dogs need gentle introductions to new people. But Maya, still high on her snow discoveries, greeted the elderly neighbor with unprecedented friendliness. The snow had somehow dissolved the last of her social barriers, revealing the naturally loving dog she had always been beneath her protective shell. Mrs. Patterson had brought out a small shovel to clear her walkway, but Maya showed intense interest in the tool. She watched as Mrs. Patterson pushed the snow aside, revealing the concrete underneath. Maya seemed fascinated by this process of uncovering the familiar world beneath the white blanket. When Mrs. Patterson offered to let Maya help, she eagerly began using her paws to push snow around, mimicking the shoveling motion. Sarah was amazed at how this simple winter morning had brought out so many new aspects of Maya's personality. The dog who had once been afraid of unfamiliar objects was now enthusiastically helping with yard work, her natural intelligence and eagerness to please shining through. As they finally approached their own house, Maya seemed reluctant for the adventure to end. She kept stopping to investigate new snow formations or to revisit spots they had passed earlier. The snow had given her a reason to see their familiar neighborhood with completely fresh eyes, and she wasn't ready to give up this new perspective. Sarah decided to extend their outdoor time by taking Maya into their backyard to explore the snow in their own space. The backyard that Maya knew so intimately had been completely transformed. The garden beds were now smooth white mounds, and the fence posts wore jaunty snow caps that made them look like sentries in winter uniforms. Maya immediately ran to her favorite spot under the oak tree, where she usually liked to lie in the shade during summer afternoons. Now the area was covered in deep, pristine snow that had fallen through the bare branches. She began to excavate, using her paws to dig down to the familiar earth beneath, as if she needed to confirm that her special place was still there. Once she had reassured herself that the core of her territory remained unchanged, Maya began to really let loose. She ran in wide circles around the yard, her powerful legs carrying her through the snow with increasing speed and confidence. With each lap, she seemed to discover new joys. The way the snow flew behind her like a white wake, the satisfying crunch under her paws, the way her breath created small clouds in the cold air. Sarah sat on the back steps, brushing snow off the surface so she could watch Maya's joyful display. She had her phone ready, wanting to capture this moment not just for herself but to share with the shelter staff who had worked so hard to help Maya heal. They deserved to see how far their former resident had come. Maya discovered that she could slide in the snow, turning her runs into wild skids that sent her tumbling into soft snowdrifts. Rather than being alarmed by these tumbles, she seemed to find them hilarious, immediately bouncing back up to try again. Her playful antics were so infectious that Sarah found herself laughing until her sides ached. The neighbors began to notice the commotion, and several came to their windows or stepped onto their porches to watch Maya's snow celebration. Word spread quickly through their close-knit neighborhood about the rescued dog experiencing snow for the first time, and soon Maya had quite an audience appreciating her pure, unrestrained joy. Maya seemed to sense the attention and began showing off, attempting increasingly dramatic leaps and spins through the snow. She would pause between performances to check if Sarah was still watching, her tail wagging furiously when she received praise and encouragement. As the morning progressed, more snow began to fall, adding to the magic of the moment. Maya noticed the falling snowflakes and began trying to catch them, jumping high into the air with her mouth open. Her attempts were rarely successful, but the effort filled her with such obvious delight that success seemed beside the point. The falling snowflakes seemed to unlock yet another level of wonder in Maya's snow adventure. She discovered that by lying on her back in the snow, she could watch the flakes fall directly toward her face. This position was completely foreign to a dog who had spent most of her life being hyper-vigilant about potential threats. But the peaceful nature of the snow had helped her find a trust in the world that allowed such vulnerability. Sarah watched in amazement as Maya rolled onto her back, her forelegs waving playfully in the air as snowflakes landed on her belly and face. Occasionally, Maya would catch a snowflake on her tongue, and her expression would show surprise and delight at the cool, clean taste. The sight of Maya so completely relaxed and happy brought tears to Sarah's eyes as she remembered the fearful dog she had first met at the shelter. As Maya rolled and played in the snow, she began making what could only be described as snow angels, or rather, snow dogs. Her body created perfect impressions in the snow as she wiggled and rolled, leaving behind artistic evidence of her joy. When she would get up and see the shape she had made, Maya would cock her head curiously, as if trying to understand how her body had created this interesting pattern. The neighborhood children, on their way to school, began stopping to watch Maya's snow celebration. Their parents, initially concerned about being late, found themselves lingering to witness this heartwarming display of pure animal joy. One little girl asked her mother if they could stay just a few more minutes to watch the happy dog play, and soon a small crowd of admirers had gathered. Maya seemed to thrive on the positive attention. Rather than being overwhelmed by the audience as she might have been just months earlier, she appeared to be putting on a show. She would perform a particularly impressive leap or roll, then look toward her audience with what could only be described as pride. The transformation from a dog who had hidden from human contact to one who delighted in making people smile was remarkable. Sarah decided to join Maya in the snow, getting down on her hands and knees to play at Maya's level. This invitation to shared play sent Maya into paroxysms of joy. She began racing around Sarah in circles, occasionally stopping to bow in the classic dog play position before launching into another series of snow acrobatics. When Sarah began making an actual snow angel, Maya watched with intense fascination. She seemed to understand that Sarah was doing something similar to her own rolling behavior, but with purpose and intention. After Sarah finished her snow angel and stood up to admire it, Maya immediately went to the same spot and began creating her own version right next to Sarah's. The sight of the two snow impressions side by side, one clearly human, one unmistakably canine, created a powerful symbol of their bond. Sarah knelt beside the paired snow angels and called Maya over for what she knew would be the perfect photograph. Maya, covered in snow and with her tongue happily hanging out, posed beside their collaborative artwork. As they continued playing, Maya made another discovery that sent her into fresh waves of excitement. She found that she could pick up chunks of snow in her mouth and carry them around like toys. These snow toys had the added advantage of being perfectly safe to bite and chew, unlike the many objects she had learned to be cautious about during her difficult past. Maya began collecting snow chunks of different sizes, arranging them in a pile as if she were organizing her treasures. Sarah realized this was similar to the way Maya had begun organizing her toys at home, a sign of her growing sense of ownership and security. The fact that she was now doing this with temporary snow toys in their backyard showed how completely she had embraced this winter wonderland as her own. The morning sun was climbing higher, and the snow was beginning to soften slightly in the warmer rays. Maya discovered that this changing texture created new possibilities for play. The slightly softer snow packed better, allowing her to create more defined shapes with her paws and nose. She began what could only be described as snow sculpting, using her natural digging instincts to create mounds and valleys in the white landscape. Sarah marveled at how Maya's intelligence was expressing itself through this creative play. The dog was problem-solving and experimenting, testing theories about how the snow behaved under different conditions. It was like watching a scientist at work, if that scientist happened to be covered in golden fur and expressed joy through tail wagging. As more neighbors emerged for their morning routines, they were drawn to the sight of Maya's continuous snow celebration. Mr. Johnson from next door mentioned that in all his years of dog ownership, he had never seen a dog take to snow with such pure, sustained enthusiasm. The mail carrier, Mrs. Rodriguez, delayed her route slightly to watch Maya's antics, commenting that starting her day with such a joyful sight would keep her smiling through her entire shift. Maya seemed to understand that she was bringing happiness to everyone who watched her. Her natural empathy, which had made her so responsive to human emotions during her recovery, now worked in reverse. She could sense the joy she was creating in others, and this knowledge seemed to fuel her own happiness even further. As the day progressed, Maya's snow adventure took on an almost meditative quality. After the initial excitement and high-energy play, she began to explore the snow with deeper concentration and purpose. She would spend long minutes examining how her paws created different patterns in snow of varying depths, like an artist learning to work with a new medium. Sarah noticed that Maya had developed a methodical approach to her snow exploration. She would test each area with a tentative paw before committing her full weight, then experiment with different walking gaits to see how they affected her movement through the snow. This careful, scientific approach spoke to the intelligence that had helped Maya survive her difficult past and was now helping her master this new environment. The snow continued to fall intermittently throughout the morning, and Maya discovered that fresh snowflakes felt different from the settled snow on the ground. She would stand perfectly still with her face upturned, letting the new flakes land on her nose and melt slowly. The concentration required for this activity seemed to put her into a peaceful trance. her breathing slow and even as she experienced each delicate touch of ice crystal against her fur. Around midday, Sarah brought out a thermos of hot chocolate for herself and a bowl of fresh water for Maya. They sat together on the back porch, both slightly tired from their morning of snow adventures. Maya positioned herself close to Sarah, her snow-dampened fur gradually drying in the weak winter sun. The contentment radiating from Maya was so strong that Sarah could almost feel it herself. As they rested, Maya continued to watch the snow with undiminished fascination. She had moved beyond the initial excitement of discovery into something deeper, a genuine appreciation for the beauty and uniqueness of this winter phenomenon. Her eyes tracked the movement of snow blown by gentle breezes, and she would occasionally lift her head to sample the crisp winter air. Sarah realized that this snow day had become much more than just a fun experience for Maya. It had been a breakthrough in her recovery, a moment when all her hard-won trust and confidence had combined with the magic of new discovery to create something truly special. The transformation was so complete that Sarah could hardly remember the frightened dog who had once cowered in the shelter kennel. When Maya had rested enough, she began a new phase of her snow exploration. She started creating what Sarah could only call snow sculptures, deliberate constructions made by pushing snow into piles with her nose and paws. These weren't random digging projects but purposeful artistic endeavors that showed planning and creativity. Maya's first major sculpture was a long, curved mound that followed the fence line like a snowy wall. She worked on it with intense concentration, occasionally stepping back to assess her progress before returning to refine specific sections. The result was surprisingly aesthetic, creating an elegant border that enhanced the beauty of their backyard. Encouraged by Sarah's praise for her artistic efforts, Maya began working on a second project in the center of the yard. This sculpture was more complex. Incorporating different levels and textures, she used her paws to create smooth surfaces and her nose to add decorative details. The final result resembled an abstract interpretation of the mountains Sarah had shown her in picture books. The neighbors, who had been watching Maya's snow day adventure, began to comment on her artistic achievements. Mrs. Patterson brought out her camera to document Maya's snow sculptures, declaring them worthy of an art gallery. The children returning from school gathered at the fence to admire Maya's creations, asking their parents if their own dogs could learn to make snow art. Maya seemed to understand that her sculptures were being appreciated as art. She would sit proudly beside each finished piece, her chest puffed out with obvious satisfaction. When people praised her work, her tail would wag enthusiastically, and she would often add small finishing touches to show that she was still working on perfecting her technique. As the afternoon light began to change, casting longer shadows across the snow, Maya started her most ambitious project yet. She began creating a series of connected snow mounds that seemed to tell a story. Each mound was different in size and shape, and Maya moved between them with purposeful intent, as if she had a master plan in mind. Sarah watched in amazement as Maya's final sculpture took shape. The connected mounds formed a winding path through the yard, with smaller decorative elements added along the way. It was like a snow maze, or perhaps a representation of Maya's own journey from fearful rescue to confident family member. The symbolism wasn't lost on Sarah, who saw in Maya's creation a physical manifestation of growth and hope. As the day began to wind down, Maya showed no signs of tiring of the snow. If anything, her appreciation seemed to deepen with each passing hour. She had discovered that snow offered endless possibilities for exploration, creativity, and joy. The substance that had been completely unknown to her that morning had become a source of pure happiness that seemed to touch something fundamental in her spirit. Sarah realized that she was witnessing more than just a dog playing in snow. She was seeing the emergence of Maya's true personality, creative, joyful, confident, and deeply connected to the world around her. The snow had provided the perfect medium for Maya to express parts of herself that had been buried under layers of fear and trauma. As evening approached, the winter sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden glow across the snow-covered landscape. Maya had been playing in the snow for nearly 8 hours, but her enthusiasm remained undimmed. If anything, the approaching dusk seemed to add a new dimension to her snow experience, as the changing light created different shadows and colors across her white canvas. Sarah knew that Maya would need to come inside soon for dinner and warmth. but she was reluctant to end what had clearly been one of the most important days of Maya's life. The transformation she had witnessed was so profound that she wanted to give Maya every possible moment to cement these new discoveries in her memory. Maya seemed to sense the approaching end of their snow day and began a final tour of all her favorite discoveries. She revisited the spot where she had first stepped into the snow, the area where she had made her snow angels with Sarah and each of her snow sculptures. At each location she would pause and seem to reflect, as if she were storing away precious memories. The evening light transformed Maya's snow sculptures into something even more magical. The low sun created dramatic shadows that gave depth and mystery to her creations. Maya sat beside her masterpiece, the winding path of connected mounds, and for a moment both dog and human were quiet, appreciating the beauty they had created together. As the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Sarah finally called Maya inside. To her surprise, Maya didn't resist. She seemed to understand that their snow day was complete, that she had experienced everything this magical substance had to offer for now. She took one last long look at the transformed backyard, as if committing every detail to memory. Inside the warm house, Maya's transition back to her indoor routine was remarkably smooth. Sarah helped towel off her damp fur, and Maya submitted to this care with the same patient acceptance she had learned during her recovery. But there was something different about her now, a confidence and contentment that radiated from her entire being. As Sarah prepared Maya's dinner, she noticed that her dog kept returning to the windows to gaze out at the snow-covered yard. But this wasn't the anxious watching of her early days in the house. This was the satisfied observation of someone who had claimed a space as their own and wanted to keep enjoying its beauty. Maya ate her dinner with her usual good appetite, but she seemed distracted by happy thoughts. Occasionally, she would pause in her eating to look toward the windows, and Sarah could swear she saw Maya smile at whatever memories were playing in her mind. The snow had given Maya something precious, a sense of pure joy that no difficult past could take away. That evening, as they settled into their usual spot on the couch, Maya was more affectionate than she had ever been. She pressed close to Sarah, resting her head on her human's lap with complete trust and contentment. Sarah gently stroked Maya's fur, still amazed by the day's transformation. The dog who had once been afraid to accept human touch was now seeking it out as a natural expression of their bond. As Maya dozed against Sarah's side, occasionally her legs would move in small running motions, and soft whimpers of excitement would escape her sleeping lips. Sarah realized Maya was dreaming about her snow adventures, reliving the joy and discovery in her sleep. Even in dreams, the snow continued to bring happiness. The next morning, Maya was at the window before Sarah had even finished making coffee. The snow was still there, perhaps not as pristine as the day before, but still covering their world in white magic. Maya's tail began wagging the moment she saw that her winter wonderland hadn't disappeared during the night. From that day forward, Maya's relationship with winter weather became a source of endless joy for the entire neighborhood. Every snowfall brought out her artistic side, her playful spirit, and her infectious enthusiasm. Children would ask their parents to walk past Maya's house on snow days, hoping to catch a glimpse of the golden dog who had turned snow play into an art form. Sarah often reflected on how a simple weather event had become such a profound moment of healing and transformation for Maya. The snow had provided the perfect catalyst for Maya to shed the last of her fearful past and step fully into her role as a beloved family member. It had shown Sarah and everyone who witnessed it that rescue dogs don't just survive their difficult beginnings, they can transcend them completely. Maya's story became legendary at the Riverside Animal Rescue, inspiring staff and volunteers during difficult times. When they encountered dogs who seemed too damaged or fearful to ever find happiness, they would remember Maya dancing in the snow and know that healing was always possible. The snow had given Maya more than just a day of fun. It had given her a way to express the joy that had always existed within her, waiting for the right moment to emerge. In that white winter wonderland, Maya had found not just delight, but the final piece of herself that transformed her from a rescued dog into a dog who could rescue others simply by showing them what happiness looked like. Years later, Maya would still greet every snowfall with the same boundless enthusiasm, but that first snow day remained special. It was the day she learned that the world held magic, that trust could be rewarded with wonder, and that sometimes the most beautiful transformations happen when we least expect them. Her delight in that first snow had indeed touched hearts, creating ripples of joy that spread far beyond their quiet neighborhood. The video Sarah had taken of Maya's snow angels became an internet sensation, shared millions of times across social media platforms. People from around the world wrote to share their own rescue dog stories, inspired by Maya's transformation. The Riverside Animal Rescue saw a dramatic increase in adoption applications, with many families specifically requesting older dogs or those with difficult backgrounds, understanding that these animals often had the most love to give. Maya's snow sculptures, photographed and shared by neighbors, sparked a movement of snow art therapy for rescue animals. Other shelters began incorporating snow play into their rehabilitation programs during winter months, finding that the novel experience helped traumatized animals break through psychological barriers in ways traditional therapy couldn't achieve. But perhaps the most meaningful impact of Maya's snow day came in the form of a small girl named Emma, who had been watching from her bedroom window that magical morning. Emma had been struggling with her own fears and anxieties following her family's recent move to the neighborhood. Seeing Maya's fearless embrace of something completely new gave Emma the courage to make friends at her new school and try activities she had been too scared to attempt. Emma's mother later told Sarah that watching Maya play in the snow had been a turning point for her daughter. The sight of a once frightened dog choosing joy over fear had shown Emma that bravery wasn't about not being scared, and it was about deciding that curiosity and wonder were stronger than anxiety. Maya's legacy lived on in countless ways, but she remained blissfully unaware of her fame. For her, the most important result of that snowy day was the deep, unshakable knowledge that she was home, she was loved, and the world was full of beautiful surprises waiting to be discovered. Every morning, as she looked out at their backyard, Maya carried with her the memory of that perfect day when snow had taught her that magic was real, and that sometimes the most wonderful gifts come disguised as ordinary weather. The rescued dog, who had once known only uncertainty and fear, had become a teacher of joy, showing everyone who witnessed her snow day that healing is possible, that trust can be rebuilt, and that the capacity for wonder never truly leaves us. It just waits patiently for the right moment to emerge and transform everything we thought we knew about happiness.